Welcome to Harmonium LA, the podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Heedy Gandolfi, emotional wellness expert, founder of Harmonium LA, and published author. The world needs healing now more than ever. My goal is to bring you inspiring conversations, tips, and techniques that will help you build a sustainable healing toolkit. The Harmonium LA podcast is the only resource you will need to slow down, stop searching, and start healing. Welcome back to another episode of Stop Searching and Start Healing. So today's show is one that I am really, really excited about because we are going to be discussing and talking about two of my most favorite topics. And those topics are healing and horses. So today's guest is really going to be bringing to your awareness the business that she has built and how she is working using horses to ultimately help to heal at a really deep level. So let me give you a bit of a bio about her, and then we will bring her in and let her do the talking. Lisa Murrell, founding partner of Equine Alchemy and Meta System Consulting Group, has spent the last 20 years working globally to help her clients achieve breakthrough results in business development and team executive coaching. Lisa has developed the only ICF-approved coach-specific training programming for equine-assisted coaching in the world, which utilizes her extensive experience in both coaching and business development with horse wisdom. Lisa's work in executive and team coaching, life coaching with and without horses, and leadership development with horses are guides for integrating the wisdom of horses into personal and professional transformation. Lisa provides workshops, coaching, and mentorships in Arizona and Georgia in person, online, and privately. So let's bring Lisa into the show. So Lisa, welcome to the show. Absolutely thrilled that you're joining us all the way from beautiful, blustery Tucson, right, in Arizona this morning.
Correct.
Yeah,
it's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was just saying in the intro that I'm absolutely thrilled and excited about today's episode because it's combining two of my most passionate topics, which is healing and horses. So to be able to bring those two together, to just see those elements fuse so wonderfully, I'm just really excited to be able to talk about that and share that with all of our listeners today. So before we dive into that, why don't we just start with a bit about you and your background, because you've had, a really impressive career spanning, all the time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how that kind of led you to ultimately where you are today doing what you're doing?
Okay. Well, I've had definitely several careers. So for any of you listening, yes, that is possible. And finally, I found the one that is the purpose of my life. But I started out in New Mexico, and my mother wanted me to be a model. And so I went to New York and became a model. And I did that for 15 years, if you can believe it. I lived in Paris. I was there for quite a while. I worked all over the world. I put myself through undergraduate at New York University in psychology. And then later I did my graduate degree at Teachers College, Columbia University, in organization development and human resource management. But at the time when I was modeling, I think from the moment I started, I was looking for a way to get out of it. But I knew that it was some sort of a conduit. I just knew that, but I don't know that I could have articulated that. I just knew I had to get out of Dodge. And I think my mother knew that too. So that's why she wanted me to go. And so after doing that, I stumbled into consulting, which is kind of a strange thing to go from being a model into consulting.
Right. Yeah.
It was my spiritual guide, and really just after I had my daughter, really saying a lot of prayers and saying, okay, what's next? I don't know. Just really wanting to be open to what's possible, but not really knowing how that works.
Right. Because I can't imagine that modeling industry for 15 years, that's a huge amount of your time, a big chunk of time to be in that environment and traveling and trying to find yourself and not necessarily knowing. I mean, I can't imagine what that world is like in trying to find yourself and what your true purpose is. So to move into that spiritual space and allow guidance perhaps to come through.
That was really, I think, one of the big turning points. It's interesting. I've done this exercise, and I'm sure many of your listeners, as well as you, have done this. Just drew a line, a timeline of, the big moments in your life and maybe the lowest valleys and the big. And so there were specific and significant times in your life where it changed the course of your life or determined the course of your life.
Yes.
And my spirituality was one of those things. And in any case, my prayers were answered. And all of a sudden, this man from Paris calls me, and I met him through somebody else, and he had a consulting firm in Paris, and he basically ended up financing me to start the North American version of his consulting company.
Oh, amazing.
I know these things don't just happen, they are destined, or it is written, or whatever. But I think that's what happens when you open yourself up to possibility.
Right. Exactly. Allowing and being open to seeing what's going to come next. But I mean, how did that affect you? That's such a big shift. I mean, how did you navigate that to go from modeling to consultancy to going and putting yourself through university and studying to that degree and that level with psychology, and then on and the teaching? I mean, how did you navigate that in your mindset? And did you carry a lot of, not baggage, but issues perhaps from that modeling field into the business world? Was that an easy transition, or how did that work?
Well, there was a big transition when I became a mother of, okay, what do I do now? On many fronts. But I kind of built my consulting business based on the model that I used on myself, which was, okay, let's put on one side of the page, what are your assets, basically, and your resources? And on the other side of the page, what do you absolutely not at all have any resources or wish to do, and or that you need to study? And that was pretty clear. So I put together workshops, right, and it was called Beauty from the Inside Out. And I would I was trying to heal myself. You're asking what was my mindset, although I don't know that I was consciously aware of this at all. And I went to different places where adolescent girls had been taken out of the homes as a result of abuse. Wow. All kinds of different abuse. And they were just in a terrible state. So I was trying to heal my own childhood trauma. Didn't know that this was true, but I knew I had the experience, so I could relate to them. And I also knew through going through all these years of modeling that it didn't have anything to do with what I looked like on the outside. It was all inside. And that's what I was struggling to live. Right. The inside of me. By the way, I'm still trying to do that.
Oh, we all? Oh, we all? I mean, hello. Amen to that.
No magic pills, let me tell you. So I really enjoyed that. I really had some of the most amazing experiences doing that. And again, still just meeting people and doing this and doing that. And then I had somebody because it was outside of New York City, I met somebody in the fashion business who asked me to do a communication workshop. And it just started unfolding. Right. And that's, again, I think what happens when you work really hard.
Yes.
And you allow.
Yeah. And when you're on the right path, you're being guided, and then things just magically, or by not, open up to you. And people that
divinely
experiences, they just all start to show up at the right time. And that's just another reminder that, yes, this is your purpose, which, I mean, that's the word you mentioned earlier, is saying that this is your purpose. But how did the horses then play into that?
Yeah, see, because I didn't find my purpose. I was just finding a way to take care of my daughter.
Right.
I'd gone from making tons and tons of money. That's kind of how I described it. Yeah. Actually, I did an interview for CNN, or they interviewed me a couple of times, and they said, what is your favorite part about modeling? And I said, the money. There's no doubt about that. But I didn't have that after that, because I had not managed it well. I had spent it well.
Right.
But so I needed to do something with, wait a minute, I was going to talk about 3 or 4 different things. What was the question that you asked? This is what happens. I get a traffic jam in my mind because so much happened. Where did the horses come in?
Yeah.
So here I was doing this work. And then all of a sudden I was building this huge consulting practice. I mean, not huge, but very extensive and very lucrative consulting practice. And I was just getting burned out. I was in such a place in my life that I knew what I needed to do in terms of taking care of my family, taking care of me. And plus my work ethic is just very, very driven anyway.
Right.
And then I became more and more and more unhappy. And it was just vacuous. I would give so much. And what I wanted to do was create reciprocity.
Yeah.
I wanted to be grounded was first, and I wanted to be in relationship second. I didn't know really how to be in relationship. I mean, I was married, but I didn't know how to be in relationship. Yeah. So my daughter got into horses when she was about 12, and I got around horses again, and I thought, oh, this sounds familiar. This feels very familiar. I'm gonna just plug this in. Yeah. And so I thought, well, you know, there's something going on here. And I just started writing again. And then I started feeling something very, very different. And I had been doing work that was very deep psychologically with all the organizations that I worked with, and looking at the system and looking at how basically how one part of anything is just, you can find the whole of everything in it. Yeah. So I said, okay, so I really want to find out more of what this is. Still on my path to healing, still on my path to understanding, trying to understand who I was, right, and am. And so I went to study with Linda Kohanov, who had written The Tao of Equus and Writing Between the Worlds. She was actually one of the first women who, she's an incredible writer, wrote about this process, wrote about this relationship and transformation, total transformation through having a relationship with the horse. She called it the way of the horse. And so I went out and studied with her, and it changed my life completely. I learned so much about myself. I think it was about a year-long apprenticeship. And I think I don't know that I didn't cry every single day.
But that just shows the power of that, though, right?
Right.
What those emotions that you don't even know are pent up, or you know they're pent up, but you just don't know what is going to come up as a result of that.
Yeah, it took me a while to understand what happened, actually.
Had you ridden as a little girl then back in New Mexico? You'd always grown up around horses yourself, but then you got distance from that with the career and everything else.
Well, everything Linda was doing and everything I do, even though I still ride and jump and do all of that stuff, is all on the ground.
Right.
So you didn't really have to have a background in horses at all. And there was just a connection. First of all, I was with like-minded people. Okay, mind you, before I was with a bunch of models. And then from the beginning, I was trying to leave that, although I'm very, very grateful for all the experiences that I had. And, you know, it was really amazing and an opportunity. And then I was around a lot of corporate executives. And that was not really.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't be more different, right?
Right. It's so true. And interestingly enough, I was kind of doing the same thing. It wasn't that big of a shift from modeling to being around these corporate executives because they were mostly men and I was still quite young.
Right.
So I still wasn't getting to the heart of me, right? Even though I knew and I had studied and I had these degrees, but I still wasn't taken seriously for that.
And also it doesn't sound like you would have had the time to go inwards and reflect and take on board what you needed. You know, like you say, from the outside, you had this magnificent, shiny lifestyle with the money and the career and all of the things, but you were still on this journey of trying to inwardly heal from that childhood trauma, from the experiences of working in that industry, but not actually allowing yourself that time. I'm sure with the amount of studying you would have done and like dealing with these businesses and these corporate executives, the nervous system, you know, must have been really on overload on top of all the trauma from before.
And there was so much more of that to come. So much more of that. I I decided after I had studied, okay, I know how to put together workshops. I know how to facilitate experiences. You know, I'm pretty good at that. I'd made a living doing that. And so I decided to start what is now Equine Alchemy. That's my company. The parent company was Meta System Consulting Group.
Right.
And so I was just kind of moving from between the two, and boy, was that bizarre. Because although I would bring what I call the horse wisdom, things that you can learn from horses, into any situation, I still felt somewhat incongruent, which is one of the main things that you learn when you are working with horses. Because being prey animals, if they see an incongruence, it's a red flag for them. Right. And it's their fight or flight kind of peeps. Yep. And they will, their behavior is different.
Well, they're so hypervigilant because they have to be, like you say, because, you know, being the herd animals and working that, they have to be so on high alert all of the time,
right?
Which allows them to be so receptive when it comes to working with them, I think, and how that works from a healing perspective.
They are incredible. They have a huge heart. There was a lot, I think I spoke to you earlier about heart math.
Yes, we did.
Heart math, right? So it's about heart coherence and about being basically aligned and congruent.
Yes.
And so when I was studying, the research was being done then on horses, but it wasn't yet out. So
you know, I mean, isn't it sort of back in the 70s, 1970s, there was so, you know, this equine therapy really did start quite a long time ago. People realizing and studying that there are so many benefits to working with these, to the benefits working these, you know, they're magnificent. They, like you say, they're strong but sensitive and hypervigilant, but they're very mirroring in the way that they work.
Right. That's so true. And that's why I bring up heart math. Because heart math talks about the electromagnetic field of our hearts.
Yeah.
Being something that has been there in our reptilian brain forever, but because we have this huge thing up here, this frontal lobe and the neocortex, we often live from here up.
Right.
Rather than the rest. And it's funny that Zoom is kind of like that. So I just thought of that. But the fact is, it's still there.
Right.
So there's a lot of work done with remembering that aspect of yourself with horses, because horses don't have that huge brain and the cognitive capacity to well, I don't know if I like this person. Well, what do you think? Do you think they like me? You know, there's none of that going on all the time.
Because, I mean, isn't it true that their limbic system is very similar to ours, but they're, like you said, the neocortex is much, much smaller. So that thought processing part of their brain, they can't do that. So they have to do it. They
also have kind of an additional limbic system as well. So because their survival depends upon knowing what's going on in their environment, sensing it, discerning whether it requires action, and then what we call going back to grazing, because they're economists of motion. They don't spend, there's no burnout for horses. Right.
Yeah.
They're in the human dimension, because they naturally conserve their energy for when it is needed. When it's necessary. So what I learned, first of all, was that all of these things that I had been feeling, I was able to put words to it.
Right.
I was able to say, oh, right, yeah, okay, this is very validating. This is very validating that what I feel is actually real. It's not something that I made up. I wasn't a drama queen. I wasn't too hypersensitive. It's, you know, all the things that so many of us who are healers are known as very hypersensitives or high sensitives. And we don't know how to manage that, because we can't recognize it so often as anything, because when we were children, we were always told there was something wrong with us. Right. We were too loud, there was too much, there, you know, the whole thing. So I totally bought into that. And
that was just through being around the horses and working with them, you were able to tune into that and really sense and reflect on it and feel it.
Absolutely, because when I was in that space, I was connected to the horse. How I knew I was connected? In the most obvious, they would come to me.
Yeah.
If it wasn't so obvious, they'd cock an ear. Yeah, I see you. Because, you know, they know what's going on in their environment. They would lick and chew. They would just breathe out. They would roll. They would do specific behaviors that I'm quite aware of now,
Mm.
as compared to when I wasn't there, where I was in my head, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I have performance anxiety, thinking I was
Right.
performing because there was a group, it wasn't just me.
Right.
And they would not even actually acknowledge that I was there. And it's not because they were ignoring me as in the human sense.
Yeah.
There was actually no signal. It's kind of like a radio, an old analog radio that doesn't tune in.
Right. Do you hear
Because
that?
I wasn't tuned in through here. This was overriding this connection.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing about being with the horse. And when
Yes.
you're riding, immediately when, oh man, I forgot to be present, and they're veering off here, or, they're doing whatever.
Oh yeah. And it's interesting because when we were chatting before, I didn't realize, because, I grew up around horses, spent literally every waking second that I could at the weekends and the evenings down at the barn with the horses. And, and I didn't realize at the time, but I just felt magnetically attracted to be in that space. Yes. And now, of course, when I look back and I realize, oh, of course, during that initial period is when I was struggling so much at school with the bullying and, the lack of self-esteem, lack of self-confidence, just not feeling seen, heard, appreciated, respected, all of those things. And to be able to go to the horses and have this connection with them, and to be able to, I remember like you say, the way that they would react, respond, you could get on a horse and immediately you feel that you just connect at such a deep level, and the horse senses that. And some of the most challenging horses, I would be able to get on and ride without fear. And I think it was just innate within me, but I wasn't aware of it. And other days, if you weren't feeling so great, you'd come and the horse, like you say, kicking out, biting, ears going flat back against their head, just not wanting to come near you. And so they absolutely. So I think at that time, I was obviously healing without realizing that I was, it was my escapism from the reality that was so traumatizing to me, to come into this environment where it was all about feeling and emotion, unbeknownst to me, rather than thoughts and words.
Right. And so as children, we are so unable to articulate. Our brains haven't even formed enough. We're just getting so full of whatever is coming at us. And we're being culturalized. Yeah. And we're also getting our awareness of what we're feeling and our trust in it culturalized out of us. So we're just pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And that's the only way horses communicate, is through that. So they're so sensitive. Some people may not know that they can sense subtle things like little changes in blood pressure. People say, horses can smell fear. Well, no, it's not that. It registers on them when your heart starts beating really fast or your blood pressure changes. To them, that indicates there's a possible threat.
And, this speaks so much to, why horses are so commonly used for dealing with trauma, and, especially for children, like you say, especially with the ADHD and with children that might be on the autistic spectrum and just don't have the capacity and that ability to communicate effectively.
Right.
And like you say, it's not necessarily about getting on a horse, but just being in the presence of a horse.
They're very healing. Yeah, they can actually. For those of you who have experienced or are interested in energetic healing and alignment, that's what they do, because they need you to be aligned in order for them to feel safe to interact with you. So I've had many horses start at the top and go all the way down to my feet like, oh, honey, we got to clear some of this stuff out. And then they'll lick and chew afterwards like, oh, that's so much better.
Right.
So they do what they need to do to feel safe. But the thing is, they're so aware of what they need.
Yeah, unlike us.
They can do that. What you were saying about nonverbal healing, so to speak, I know that's one of the reasons why this work is so powerful for veterans. Yes. Because veterans, first of all, it is a culture of not talking.
Yes.
You don't talk about this stuff. Second of all, there is a huge process to shove down all of these feelings so that you have a different mindset that's needed in warfare. I'll just say it like that.
Yeah.
And so I've had many veterans come, and of course, nothing is said. and they come out and they're smiling and or crying, but something has really been touched. And then that's where the coaching, because I do equine assisted coaching, and that comes from all the executive coaching and all the stuff that I did then. People can have these really incredible experiences like you did when you were a little girl or when you were a teenager.
Yeah.
But you didn't know, there probably wasn't anybody around that you could talk to say, you know, this happened or that happened. What's really happening here? I'm feeling this.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what the coaching is. It's equine assisted coaching, as far as I define it, is creating that safe experience for people, but holding the space for the intellectual part as well, so that you can support whoever you're working with to understand and integrate the experience into whatever their challenges are,
right?
What it is they say that they would like in their life.
It's that kind of innate intelligence, isn't it, that's inside? And it kind of, just listening to you, it's almost kind of mirroring almost the work that I do with harmonium, because with harmonium, it's not talk therapy. It's not diagnostic. People don't come in and see me and sit down and talk about all of the things. You know, they come in, they lay down, and I just do the system. And then their bodies will process. And so again, the work with the PTSD and trauma and all of that it's so intrinsic, because it's not necessary for us to know. And sometimes it's more traumatizing to even try to verbalize it. And so to be able to be in a space with you and the horses where they just come in and be and do and allow that process to work as they do with harmonium, is just to lay down and allow the system to activate what is needed, the intelligence and the consciousness within their body to heal. There's some very small similarities between that, which I think is...
Yes, I think all healing is like that. And one of the things for the practitioners that's so important is to know when to get out of the way.
Yes.
So for the horses, it's a partnership, and I consider myself the lesser part of this partnership.
Right.
You know, I can make sense of it, but the important thing is, like you said, the body processes what you do. So it's only going to be not beneficial if you ask them to come back in their heads again and talk about what just happened.
Right.
Because the body hasn't finished doing whatever it needs to be done. And that's the same with horses. I do energy work on horses too. Yes. And I love it. That is my favorite thing to do, because I can do the energy work, the Reiki, all the other kinds of stuff I've studied. Yep. And they're so responsive because they don't get in their heads. Sometimes if horses who have never done the work before or had that work done on them, turn around and they'll look at me and they're like, you're not even touching me. You're over there, but I feel all of this here.
You can feel it. Yeah, but still you're projecting from your own body's electromagnetic field and affecting their response, because we're all connected.
Right. Well, we're all actually interacting with each other out here before we cognitively process it. That's what the heart's electromagnetic field is doing. It's connecting, and the gut. The enteric nervous system actually is more powerful than the electromagnetic field of the heart. So all of this is so under-acknowledged, if not underused. And people are just burning out like crazy because they're using all of this.
Yeah.
And if they can get into their bodies, the body is just a divine source of so much.
Yes.
100%. We can't access it unless we pay attention to it.
No, that's true. It's true. You know, it's funny, as you're talking, I'm just listening, you know, even though, you know, I've ridden horses since I was so small, but every time there's been a big challenge, I've naturally gravitated back towards it without even realizing.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. So I look back and, you know, when I was going through the divorce and, you know, I had to find, that was it. I need to get back on a horse. And I spent so much time back on the horse again and again before I really started with my deep healing. So not even realizing it. So just intuitively knowing that was where I needed to go to start that whole internal healing process.
Well, that's how I started doing this work. I started on the horse's back.
Yes. Yeah.
And I realized that what was happening was not just happening on his back. It was all over the place in my life.
Yep.
So it took some years to understand that and put it all together. It's a journey. It's always a journey.
Always a journey. Always.
Yeah.
So now, so that's obviously now evolved and grown, and you now offer these coaching programs. So you do in person, and you're now doing online as well, which is phenomenal. And so again, there's the business side of it, and there's the corporate, but also individuals that are dealing with trauma, and women especially. I think you said you do a lot of work with women with trauma. And how does that now all look?
How does it look? Well, I actually like that there's different aspects of this because I like working with different people.
Yes.
And then, of course, there's the horses themselves too, because I like to take care of them. They take on so much of what we're doing. So I don't want them to experience burnout. But the corporate work is about leadership development. But I think one of the things that differentiates what I'm doing than many people who say leadership with horses is they don't have the background. I know a few people that do beautiful work they have PhDs in organization development and leadership, or they have great experience and training and all of that. I think that is a gift to organizations. I feel that one of the downsides of anything like this could become quite trendy. Right. And people just have the experience, but they have no way, the richness is not mined. They have no way of applying it, or whoever is offering it doesn't know how to support them to apply it, or it's not even part of the deal.
So it's not just coming along and having a session, it's actually integrating that and then going away with tools and homework that they can then take away to really implement and allow it to integrate fully.
Yeah. For example, I did this job with Amazon, and I started with the leader, and we looked at, he wanted to have a leadership team development kind of thing. And so I went to him and had the same intake I would have if I'd done an offsite with an executive team without the horses. And we did an assessment, an online assessment, and I did some interpretation. So I used all the skills and tools that I had when I was doing corporate work. And then I brought them in with the horses, with that whole context, so that it was a blended, seamless experience and a real wake-up call for him. I mean, since then, it's been a year. And since then, he replaced almost everybody on his team. He realized what he did was he hired people that were just like him. And that wasn't who he needed to hire.
Right.
And then he had some coaching with me. Anyway, he's been promoted, but he still says that was such a great experience for him. But so what I'm basically saying is it's within the context of the work that you're already doing. Right. It's not a one-off. Like if someone came to you, oh, I just want to try this. I don't know. But they haven't done the work on themselves to prepare for the opening. I'm sure it's a very different experience, right?
Definitely. And I say that if you're not ready, it's not going to resonate. It's all about resonance, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the leadership stuff. So if I do work with people in leadership development, and I also, because I have the background I teach other people how to work. I have a leadership development certification course. So I teach them. It's kind of like a Cliff Notes version of all the work and experience that I've done. And I teach them how to blend it together. Because that's just what I feel is the most valuable with this work. And then there's the Equine Assisted Coach Certification Program. And actually, when I first started doing this work, I was already a coach with the International Coach Federation. Actually, I was a coach before they even had that. That's how long I've been coaching. And I said, you know what? This whole experience with the horses has made me such a better coach. Like I felt like I needed to apologize for the last 10 years and, because I'd learned so much from the horses. So I said, okay, for people who want continuing education credits and people who want to learn how to coach, I will create this program. But then people started asking me, well, I want to learn how to do the whole thing.
Right.
So I, along with my sister, who was an educator, she's passed now, we put together a proposal, and we are the only organization in the world that has this level of approval from the International Coach Federation for equine assisted coach training.
Amazing.
So it's because it's a quite robust process to become approved, because there's no licensing for coaching or anything like that. So you want to be able to have some kind of accreditation.
Well, it's a completely different model, isn't it? I guess to normal coaching, it's just not the same. But So if somebody wanted to do this, do they have to have a horse in order to take part in this?
No, that's the interesting thing. Just access to horses.
Right.
Because you may ride at the nearby stable.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens a lot is the people that are students, some people are great consultants, other people are great with horses. One has horses, one doesn't know anything about business, and they can partner together. Sometimes there's people who don't have either one. They just know, they're just drawn to it.
Right.
And so you just need to have access to horses. You don't have to have your own.
Right.
And that's great because some people come to this course simply for the personal transformation.
Right. Yes.
Because it's huge.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily want to be an equine assisted coach, but it's kind of like being I always wanted to do yoga teacher training. I don't want to teach yoga, but I want to immerse myself.
Immerse yourself in it. Yeah. And
right?
the benefits of it, but not actually.
Yeah. So I think that's several clients have done that.
Oh, I'm going to be doing that, by the way. I'm going to be going into that just purely to be in and around that experience for the transformation, because I think that's so powerful. Well, I know it is.
It really is. And then there's the individuals who find me, come, and but a lot of the people who go through the course itself continue coaching with me for a long time, with and without the horses.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it all looks.
And it's amazing. And I think it's just a different take on it. And I think there are so many options out there. And, to have something when you can combine, that passion and love of horses and being in that field around them, and to also use that to heal at such a deep root level. I think it's a beautiful experience. But, I'm guessing horses, we all know horses aren't cheap. That whole field and industry of equine and equestrian is not a cheap space to be in and around. And so if people are listening and they're so inspired by all of this, but they just may not have that funds or that access to be around horses, I mean, what tips are there? Are there any tips that you could give them?
Right. Well,
from the horse world that you could
share? First thing, I started out, I thought I had to have the whole thing, like a retreat center, so to speak, with the horses and everything. And I kind of did. But because life happens in not all the ways that you think, I have not had my own barn for probably 10 years.
Wow.
Of doing this work for 15 or 16. It's just not what happens. So I learned how to adapt and work at different people's places.
Right.
And I actually like that because then I can play with the different horses. The responsibility is not the same. The cost is not the same at all. So there's ways to do this. People come into my class that have no horses, and I don't know, by the time they're finished, they have 3. I don't know. It's just one of those things that happens. However, like I said, you don't have to be around the horses to be able to benefit from horse wisdom.
Yeah.
There's one thing called energetic agility and emotional agility. And there's a 4-step process that basically I learned from Linda Kohanoff. Right. And the first was, this is what the horses do. Okay. And it's about being able to be, how we talk about the elasticity of the brain. Well, this is the elasticity of the emotions in the limbic system. Be aware of what's going on around you. That's what horses do. They're very hypervigilant. Humans don't have to be, but those people who are always on their phone and they don't even know what's happening. Yep. That's one, be aware of what's going on around you. Number 2, notice what's happening in your body as you experience that. For example, if you're walking down a dark alley, first of all, you're in a dark alley, but wait a minute, how does that feel? Are you cool because it's your neighbor's alley and you just go into their house? Or is it someplace in the city? Or you're sitting next to when we used to be able to do that. And you have this very strange feeling about this person. Yes. So you need to be able to recognize that you're feeling something and pay attention to it. Is this okay or is this not okay? And then 3rd step is to either act or don't act. Do I need to move? Do I need to leave? Do I need to say something? Or am I just fine? That's his stuff. Yeah. Not mine. That's just them. I'm not in danger. I am fine. Or it could be the same as, okay, I'm noticing that perhaps I said something that wasn't as sensitive, or I wasn't as sensitive to this person's sensitivities.
Yeah.
And so I noticed that. And how do I feel? Well, I feel kind of bad. I feel, I don't know, maybe a little embarrassed, maybe a little bit of shame. Okay, what do I need to do? Oh, I don't know. Well, I've learned that I can say, Jessica, I'm so sorry. I don't know if this is me or not. You let me know. I feel like I might have said something that was
Right.
inappropriate or hurtful or something, and I didn't mean to do that. But if I have, please forgive me.
Mm.
And then it's gone. And then fourth step is to go back to grazing, which is economy of motion. You're not anxious, you're not worrying, you're not wasting. You have been in authentic relationship with the person.
Mm-hmm.
So that is emotional and energetic agility. Number one, pay attention to what's going on in your environment. Number two, pay attention to how you're experiencing, or what are you feeling.
Yeah.
And then number three, is there something you need to do or not?
Yeah.
And then number four, let it go. Go back to grazing.
That is just beautiful. And I think that is so timely right now, given everything, because people can use those 4 simple steps, even just being in their own home. You know, if they pick something up or watch something on the news, or they've got, you know, situations with
Yes.
kids at home, and all of the things that we've had to try and navigate in the last 12 months. I think that's a beautiful way to just stop and take that moment.
Right. People don't realize why they're so anxious, but they watch the news all the time. I don't have television.
Yeah.
I have my NPR when I'm in the car, and New York Times in the morning, and that's it.
Yeah.
But
so your emotional diet is balanced.
I feel like it is.
Yeah.
I feel like it is. But I know that a couple of my friends, oh, I've got to come over. I got to get away from the TV. Well, you know, you can do that in your own house, although you're very welcome to come over here. They want to come up here because my scene is so calm.
So calm, because you've taken those 4 steps and you've navigated that. That's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. I think that is going to be so helpful to so many people listening. But then for those that are wanting to take that next step and really get involved with the work that you're doing, they can find you where?
equinealchemy.com. EquineAlchemy. Equine Alchemy. I spell it because there's a lot of people who don't know or not familiar with the term equine or alchemy.
Yeah.
And how I came with alchemy is alchemy was the ancients' way or attempt of turning lead into gold. Okay. And so I came to alchemy because it was a total transformation of who I was. And we do a lot of shadow work.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where a lot of the gold is.
Oh, wait. Well, you have to go inside. You know, you've got to really stop and take time, but having tools to be able to access that more easily and more gracefully, so that you can deal with whatever comes up, because there's going to be so many things, like you say, that just keep showing up, and they have to show up in order to be healed. And that's
they do. And there's another thing, a quick, easy thing that people can do when if you're in that process of like, okay, what does this feel like? Do I need to do something? Ask yourself the question, is this for me or is it for them? So it's whether I need to tell you the truth about something. No, you don't need to know this whole thing. It would just be for me. Or I need to give you a Kleenex because you're upset. No, you need to feel like you're feeling. I need to just be able to sit in uncomfortable emotion. If you ask me for a tissue, I will give it to you.
Yeah.
But allowing yourself to recognize what feelings are you feeling and own them. That's a very, very big step. And in this work, we learn not only to recognize those feelings, begin to integrate them without fear, because we learn about what are the emotions, what are the messages behind emotions, the language of emotions, so that we can align ourselves more fully.
Beautiful. I'm coming. I'm on my way.
I hope you do. I'm starting to have in-person workshops in the fall.
Amazing.
I've been doing everything online, and it has been working so beautifully. I still have some workshops online.
Perfect.
And so I'm really looking forward to all of that.
Well, Lisa, honestly, it's been absolutely such a pleasure listening and just experiencing and hearing about this amazing, just your whole journey and your story and where you are now, and being able to bring in the use of the horses and their gifts. It's just beautiful. And those tips, I think somebody's going to definitely pick up something from there. So we will put all of your information onto the website, all of your links and everything, so people know where to find you. And again, just thank you so much for joining and sharing all of your beautiful
Thank
gifts.
you. I don't know if people know, but when I heard about Jessica and her podcast, I said, oh, I want to do that. And then a couple of days later, she reaches out to me.
I know, wasn't that so funny? Because you hadn't even been on that call that we were on together. And I was like, oh, I'm just going
That's that being open to healing and for whatever wants to happen. So thank you for
thank you.
My call.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today. I truly hope that you enjoyed the show, and there is at least one thing that you can take away from today's episode that will help you build that sustainable healing toolkit. It would mean the absolute world to me if you would subscribe to the show, give it a 5-star review, and share this or any of the other episodes with somebody that you feel could really benefit by listening. I look forward to seeing you next time.